Alright. Alright. So, where does it learn how to think like a human? Where does the mind flayer learn how to think like a human? Henry was a... You know what? If you guys want to know what Henry was like before, pre-Mind Flare, pre-Dimension X, literally take a look at Will. Take a good look at Will. Sensitive, imaginative, creative. They didn't exactly fit in. So this made it very receptive for the Mind Flayer to control him at the end. So how did this exactly happen? Okay, let's set the scene, okay? So it was shortly after his 8th birthday. There's a really nice montage of this at the beginning of the play, I remember. He was happy and he had like his family with him and all that, celebrating his birthday, blowing out the candles. Okay. And so shortly after his 8th birthday, this is Rachel Nevada, by the way. Let's go back to Rachel Nevada, circa 1950 something. And he loved exploring. Like I said, he was imaginative, creative, and he was exploring the Nevada cave systems, which we now know in season 5, volume 1. And you know, he was exploring. He had his spyglass with him, and he came across this really weird individual. And bro was like, hello? And then, like, the person, he was just like, what? And this person was actually a rogue scientist. In the play, in the Broadway play versus the West End play, slight variations, because in the Broadway play it was a Russian, and in West End it was just the rogue scientist. But in general, he didn't go with Brenner's plans, and because he was part of the Rainbow Project, because they were also replicating what happened to the ship. So he stole this equipment. He had this equipment with him, you know, and he defected. He escaped. He ran from the facility. He was like, I'm gonna take this for myself for whatever reason. And so he looked at him. He was like, get out here, kid. This is too dangerous. Like, but you're here. What are you doing with that stuff? None of your business, kid. Could you please leave? Like, but that looks dangerous. You shouldn't be doing that here. Could you stop? You're just a kid. Could you move? Like, I'm not even gonna finish this, but basically, the device or whatever the equipment activated and transported them to Dimension X. Now, the scientist was never to be found again, so I'm guessing he dead. But Henry was said to disappear after 12 hours, for 12 hours. And when he came back, his personality and his blood was altered. So yeah, he was a bit different now. A bit more different than he was before. And so that whole Nevada Cave incident was the second contact with Dimension X. Then after that, he started to feel a bit weird. Like something was speaking to him, and we get to see some of his powers. Not really, but it was said. Apparently he broke the legs of a boy in school. was partly the reason why the Krill family moved to Hawkins. Cue the music. I don't know the. Wait, I do know the lyrics. In Rachel, Nevada, born and raised in the Nevada cave systems, where I spent the rest of my days chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, or shooting some b-ball outside school. Well, he probably wasn't shooting b-ball. He was probably like drawing or something. When one scientist was up to no good, started making trouble in my neighborhood. One little transportation to another dimension, and then coming back after 12 hours and then breaking some kids' legs. And my mom got scared. She said, "You're moving to Hawkins, Indiana." So they moved, and Brenner followed shortly afterwards because he's a creep. He found the spyglass, realized he was there. Transported Dimension X, and the torture continues. So what was that contact actually? What was actually that contact? It was psychic resonance. Not possession. I think people kind of confuse that quite a lot. Like, the mind flare didn't necessarily put something in him, it kind of just turned the volume up in his head. And because Henry was now getting a frequency from somewhere completely different, he was confused. He was like, what's going on? Like, who are you? I can hear you in my head. I can hear you when I, like, remote view and like, I can hear you in the dark and all that. Like, he was just really confused. So, and really the whole time it was kind of just him being watched. And the mind flayer did try to attack him as many times as it could. But again, like, the reason why I didn't do it immediately at the beginning is because I was trying to learn and think like a human, trying to figure out, okay, what is this guy's like weak points? Why does he get triggered by certain things? Where is it in his life that he feels such a way? And he would catch him at his worst moments, and eventually at the end of the play he would just break down into nothing. I think his core traits, like I said, like being sensitive, which should be seen as powerful to actually feel things deeply. But again, when it's not something that you understand in yourself and you become confused and overwhelmed, and you can get like overstimulated like that. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but you get what I mean. Like, he was just like sensory overload. You know, at a lot of times in the play he was like that and just overwhelmed and isolated. That was enough for him to be receptive to the mind flare. So it wasn't that he was chosen, he was just like, he saw the potential that Henry had and really stuck with it and studied him and broke him down. So yeah, so the whole play was just like two frequencies going back and forth, and he would try to fight it a lot of the time. There was an incident where it was Patty's dad's principal newbie, and he caught the two in the attic because Patty wanted to find her mom, and he got caught up in the whole thing because the mind flayer was like interfering with his powers and trying to find her mom, and he got caught up and injured him and attacked him. But really what happened was that Henry was trying to save him from being attacked any further, and because, like, again, like I said, it was trying to find ways to control him at his most vulnerable points, especially if he was using his powers. If you're going to use his powers, you're going to find that thing. So it was definitely a danger for him to keep using it. but he did it for Patty, and Patty always reminded him that, you know, that he can use his powers for good, which is what he was doing, and reminding him that he can be good, and she really did love him, you know. So, this is just how the imprint begins, really. Understanding his personality, understanding his weak points, his memories. So really, the Dimension X didn't really give him ideas, it just learned how he thought, how he thinks. And like I said, the Mind Flayer observes by manipulating, and it is this predator that doesn't strike yet, and it sort of studies before it really breaks him down. And we get to see exactly when they are fused. Decades later. What does this not mean? Because this wasn't destiny that he would become Vecna. You know, this play didn't say that. With this play we didn't even see him as Vecna at all. That was just us only in the show. It's talking about how he was with this influence in his mind that really took over him at many points, but at the same time wasn't really about destiny. It was about possibility. The Mind Flayer saw possibility and struck him where it hit him, where it hurt him the most. So it wasn't really about having a fixed outcome just yet. It was just sort of having that possibility of actually taking over him. But that also means that there was a possibility of saving him too. This really emphasizes how Will and Henry are alike. They're essentially mirrors, because Will is what Henry could have been if he chose connection over control. You know, but nobody really understood what was going on with him except for Patty, and Brenna pushed him away. Brenna did push her away because he saw her as weakness, because again Brenna was exploiting him for his powers and his connection with Dimension X. So she was kind of like the last hope, and when we saw her go, not dead, but just not in his life anymore, we kind of see, okay, this is tragic now, and their parents just not in the right place or right time, or just in the right mind to actually understand what is going on with my child. And then the family dinner scene, which I'll go over later in this video. So again, nobody really understood what was going on, and therefore that was perfect for the Mind Flayer. It was a perfect vessel, he thought. Perfect vessel. So I think that's what's the most like tragic part of his story. And so yeah, this whole contact influence would have stayed unfinished if humans hadn't tried to, you know, control it. Brenna.